Good morrow, fun army, and welcome to Rosie Does Lady in the Tramp. No, not really. That might be a fun one to do at some point, actually. But yeah, right now this is just my hair is drying. It doesn't actually normally dry, this curly slash floofy, but I decided I was going to do some yoga earlier, and so just kind of piled the wet hair up on top of my head into a girt knob, and then when I undid it, it was like curly, curly, curly. I'm like, oh, if only it would stay like that. My hair does not like to do anything that is not its natural form of just... Anyway, that aside, you'll probably see my hair change throughout the course of this video. Once it's dried, I will get it out of my face. So. Today is going to be quite a pivotal moment in both my sewing journey and my journey to creating costumes, journey to eventually becoming a proper cosplayer. Yeah, we're gonna start trying to make clothing. So just understand the basics of how clothing items fit together. As you know, my style is, I'm just gonna do it and figure it out as I go along, which is true. And this one's gonna be no different. But I think the step after this is to start to understand a bit more about construction, how patterns work, and whether that would be a useful thing to learn if you're going to do construction for cosplay. I suspect so, because even if you're not using a pre-created pattern, creating your own patterns I think is quite a key component of getting that stuff right. So first of all, I just wanted to show you some awesome gifts that I received recently. So there's this one, which is this epic book, and it's clothing, it's accessories, but the key component of this is actually learning how to put LEDs into everything, which any cosplayers out there will know is pretty key if you're going to go into some of the more epic armor-based video game style cosplays. So that's amazing. And I like it sort of, so even if you just look at this front one, so this is basically a devil hat with a tail, and it's designed to build your headphones into it. So I like that it's sort of that combining fashion with functionality with geekiness, which is what I'm all about, frankly. So there are some really exciting things in there to play about with. I'm me, so I probably would look at them and do them in my own way rather than do them directly as they are, but that's just the way I am. And the other one, this is extra exciting. Ah! So this is actually just an awesome, it's weighty as well. It's like an awesome beginner's cosplay book. So it comes with some ooh, I don't know if you can see, there's some basic patterns in the front. And they cover different kinds of construction. So, I mean, they cover some basic sewing bits at the front, things that you might need. And then let me find the contents page. Yeah, so it takes you through sort of general sewing basics, which is great. It's always good to have different people's perspectives on that in case you pick up a tip that you haven't found elsewhere, especially someone who actually makes cosplay costumes. I think that's really nice to hear, little hacks or tricks and things that they use, different kinds of needles and all that jazz, which is still kind of woohoo for me. Then it talks you through basic patterns for things like capes, leggings, masks, catsuits, that kind of jazz. And then the third part has a specific number of costume tutorials, which relates to then the patterns that you've got in the front of the book. So you can embellish everything in your own way, but it just gives you like that step up the ladder to really understand how you begin doing this cosplay thing, which is amazing, because I think that's kind of where I was getting a bit intimidated and a bit stuck. You know, I haven't tried garment construction at all yet. And cosplay, even though you don't have to start with all of the detail, I think we're still a little bit like, there's so much to consider, I don't even know where to start with this. So this is brilliant. Thank you to Jay and Laurie for these awesome gifts. Ooh. So back to then today's specific project. I'm so excited to show you this. Right, so I've got 2 fabrics. So I'm gonna make 2 tops. I don't know whether I'll make 2 in this session or whether I'll do the first one and then learn from that and then do the second one at some point later. But we have this amazing fabric and ooh, this amazing fabric. Now, I've washed both according to garment making instructions, which is wash the fabric first so that it can get shrinking out of the way before you've tailor-made your garment, and then it shrinks in the wash. So, those fabrics are awesome, but they're also designed to go with these awesome boots! Honestly, this is like the best purchase of my life, these. They're really bouncy as well. Good times. So, yes, what I'm planning to do, in classic me fashion of just kind of figuring it out my own way, I've got a top, which is apparently upside down, sideways, backwards. Which way is this? There we go, right. Got a top, which, again, you probably won't be able to see the detail of, but is quite crucially just 2 pieces of fabric. So, again, you won't be able to see it because it's navy, but even for something like a simple t-shirt like I'm wearing right now, you have to have a third and fourth piece, which is sleeves. And I'm not sure I'm ready for sleeves yet, at least not without some advice from my mum or a pattern. So yes, I thought I'd start with this one because the great thing about this as well is that it's a similar kind of fabric to those, where it's a bit stretchy. It's designed to be a loose fit top, and as I say, just 2 pieces. So the plan is that I'll draw around it on my professional tracing paper and create then a little front and back pattern. Then I'll cut it out of whichever one I decide I want to start with, and then we'll just sew it together and see how it goes. So it could be, because it's only 2 pieces of fabric, quite straightforward. However, I am aware that for the type of fabric I've chosen, I do need to change the needle in the sewing machine to a special coats with stretchy fabric needle. So that's a hurdle we've got to get over. Also, I don't have an overlocker or a serger. So it turns out I'm quite fortunate in the sewing machine that my mum bought me back in the day. It's got a number of different stitch options you can use, and it comes with a load of different feet. It just sounded weird. Sewing machine feet. So I need to experiment with it a little bit, but there's definitely a particular stitch you can use that replicates as far as possible what you would do on an overlocker for finishing the edges. And I did see an interesting tip on the YouTube about actually getting not too far in and then finishing the edges before then you do the hems and things, because it just gets it out of the way. So I quite like that idea. But yes, so I'm like, yes, the actual sewing together 2 bits of fabric, not too intimidating, but hemming, using a new stitch, and having to change the needle, all a little bit intimidating right now. Also, I'll show you later, but I'm trying to debate what colour thread to use, because as you will have seen, both of them sort of have a black base, but then have really strong hints of pink, or sort of purpley pink throughout. And I have a number of different pink threads, and I think I've got a couple of then pink pre-wound bobbins. Do any of them match? No. And also I can't decide if I actually want to have like the pop of pink thread in case I've buggered up the stitching in any way, and also if I maybe want to pair it with a different coloured pair of trousers or something. Like I envisage I'm going to wear it with my Cerisi pink jeans and the Awesome Boots of Awesomeness, but I also have purple jeans. If I then do the pink thread, is that going to be too clashy? I don't know. So that's another thing I've got to ponder on. So a random amount of decisions to be made in what felt like quite a simple project when I decided I was going to do it. But as I say, I feel like this is a pretty key hurdle in going from just messing about with my sewing machine and figuring out how it works to, okay, I'm actually on my cosplay journey now. I can start to figure out how things come together, and the sort of things I need to consider and think about in order to make that happen. So I'm glad to have you with me on this journey. I hope you'll enjoy it. If you happen to be a cosplayer and have any tips, I would love to hear them. So let's get to it. So it's a completely different day sometime later. I actually ended up being not very well for a little while, which was upsetting. It wasn't COVID, good news. But yes, I couldn't bring myself to deal with complicated thoughts like sewing things and, as we're about to discover, changing needles. So I have a special needle in this pack which is designed for more stretchy material. I've got no idea how to change it, so I'm going to be sat here with the instructions for a little bit, figuring that out. Then I've got here some of the spare fabric, so I'm just going to test out the stitching. So I'm still debating about the colours. Shall I go black? I think probably black will be easier. As it's our first test, maybe black will be easier. Maybe once I figured out if I can do the awesome zigzaggy overlocky stitch, then I can resort to pink for my next one. But yeah, I think maybe black for now, so we'll change the thread over. Yeah, then I need to do a test run, because as you can see it's like pretty stretchy. I actually just tried to iron the two main t-shirt pieces, and I did one and then I gave up because I'm like, well, it's not that creased in the first place from the wash. And actually it was so painful trying to, I mean, I'm not the sort of person who would ever iron a t-shirt, and I guess most of the t-shirts I would ever have attempted to iron would have been 100% cotton, so very different kind of fabric. Whereas with this, I had it on a lower heat setting and I was going gently, but it kept making new, because it would like make a little bump in the fabric and then make a nice new crease that I didn't need. So yeah, I think I looked at the other piece and there's barely a wrinkle on it, so I don't think there's much point in attempting to iron that. So yeah, so I think once then I've tested the stitch, changed over everything I need to change over, then what I will do first is actually go around the edge of both pieces individually with that zigzaggy overlocking type stitch, because as you can see, the ends just roll over so easily, and I'm already a little bit nervous about this stretchy fabric, so I think if I can just remove as many potential issues as possible early on, that will do wonders. So it's something that you would do during the course of this process anyway. I don't know, fairly sure you probably wouldn't go all the way around, because obviously then when you put them together there will be some seam sewing over the top, but from my perspective that only makes it more secure right now, and if things get a little bit bulky then I can trim down, but the main thing is just kind of having everything in control as much as possible when I come to do the main bits of the sewing. So that's my aim. Let's see how it goes and if I can get it all done today without needing to lie down because it's so exhausting. I'm hopeful. And I'm going to see my mum in a couple of weeks anyway, so if it doesn't go well, I'll sit down and get her to help me figure out why. Oh dear, she'll probably say I shouldn't be attempting this kind of fabric yet. But at the end of the day, we want to make superhero costumes and other awesome things. So stretchy fabric is going to be a fact of life, and we need to test it and see how it goes. So stay tuned, let's have a crack and see what happens. So I think I've done it. It's a bit disconcerting, to be honest, because you have to turn everything off, which means I can't have the little sewing machine light on. I'm supposed to be able to tell if it's straight. I mean, it looks straight. I pushed it up as far as it would go, so in theory it's in the right place. It's very scary, to be honest. But the next step obviously is to test it on the trial fabric, so we'll soon find out if I've buggered it up or not. So it turns out I also need to change the foot. This is so many new things all in one go, and they're like, don't try and do a stitch without having the right foot on or you'll break the needle. So I apparently want what they are referring to as over edge foot C. And I have this bag with things in it. So how I'm supposed to identify this thing, I don't know. I'm hoping there's a description. Ah! Oh my god, no! Oh. I mean... Oh, look, it says a C on it. I was going to say this looked like the picture, but it actually has a C on it. Thank crap for that. Okay. Oh, it's got like... I don't even know how to describe it. It's got like a little brush on it. Like a little paintbrush. And then 2 little bits. I presume that's doing something technical whilst we're doing this. Okay, yes, it matches the picture. Goes on that way? No, that way around. So the little black bit will be at the front? Yes, okay. So next I just have to figure out how to get this one off and this one on. It has special magical powers. You just put it underneath and it picks it up. Okay, now I have to... Oh, I've lost a page, hang on. Got to potentially change the stitch width and length. Oh no, the width... Stitch width 5, that's where it is. Stitch length 1 to 2. Thread tension 3 to 7. Oh no, hang on, which one did I just change? Okay, we're okay. Everything is okay. Right, I've officially followed the instructions. I'm now going to put all these bits back in here. So then I just need to test out the old stitching and see how that kind of goes. So, does it tell me, well, it even tells me where to put the fabric next to the foot. That's good, because like, I don't even know how this is supposed to work. I really don't. What does it say? Place the edge of the fabric next to the guide of the foot and sew while guiding the fabric edge along the guide. It's a whole lot of guiding. Guide, by the guide, with the guide, through the guide, from the guide, guide the theme tune. Wish me luck. That was entirely terrifying. It seems to have worked though. It's caught the edge. It's now kind of, it's supposed to stop it rolling up, but it's entirely rolling up now. I can feel how awful this fabric is to sew already, so I'm wondering whether, like, what stitch I'm actually going to use to do the main sewing of the pieces together. We're just going to have to experiment. It's all an experiment at this point, so at least that first step was okay. It doesn't go quite as deep as some of those stitches, so I wonder whether I can lengthen the stitch a bit. To figure out which one that is on my dials of joy, but it is at least, yeah, it's not very wide either. This is definitely a lot scarier than anything I've done thus far, but I at least managed to get the fabric in the right place on the foot, so that's something. Next step, let's do it properly. So, I'm back again. I've been procrastinating because I got scared. I feel like I tried something new and it was a little bit hard, but I got through it, and that was the doing the edges. But now I have to actually sew the t-shirt together, and that is scary because what if it doesn't fit? Or what if it's wonks? There's a high percentage probability that that will be the case, in fact, even though I folded it in half and checked that it matches on both sides, which it does. I've also got to figure out which stitch I'm going to use to do it. So there are a couple of stretch stitches mentioned in the sewing machine book that I'm going to try. So I've got, going well. Got my 2 little test strips to try a couple of the different possible stitches I could be using to go around the outside of the t-shirt. So I'm pointing, you can't see it, it's there. I've pinned it all together and that took an absolute age. So I almost gave up for the day after doing that because it took so long. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna see if I can figure out the stitching, maybe go all the way around, because once we've gone all the way around the outside, round the outside, round the outside, you've then got to like fold in the bits which you hem, so you've got to, you don't have to, but I'm going to fold over the bottom, fold over the neck and the arms, and then that's sort of your final flourish, and you do like a top stitch round, in theory. So yeah, that's enough procrastination and talking, and I'm gonna give it a go now once I've tested the stitches. Okay, I've picked my stitch. It kind of looks like a normal stitch, but it has like other bits going around it to strengthen it, so it sort of stitches forwards and backwards at the same time. Hopefully it'll be quite strong, and hopefully the fabric's not going to get caught. It worked with like where I buried my sample. Yeah, that bodes well. So yeah, cross your fingers, and we're going to go around the outside, round the outside, round the outside. Okay, so I did it. I haven't dared try it on yet. I don't know whether I should try it on before I do the turnovers. Maybe I should, and then I know how big to do them. Let me. Oh, don't know how well you can see this. That's the line there. That's the. Oh no! It's focusing on my face. Right, hang on. So this is the line here. It's defo a bit wonks in places. And the fabric being stretchy did sort of pucker up at certain points. But yeah, we'll see how it looks when we turn it the other way. And then, as I say, the next step is then to just like fold down the neckline and fold down the neckline, it'll be the other way around. And the sleeves and the bottom. And then I'll give you a little fashion show if it doesn't look completely ridiculous. So let's see. I'm going to go and try it on and see if it's at least in the right parameters at this point. Check back with you in a minute. So, I tried it on, and it actually, in general, the shape is pretty good and it's not too bad fit. I did try it on over this top, so I'll have to do like a proper try on a bit later, but I discovered several important factors. One, I accidentally sewed up the armholes. So initially I couldn't try it on. I had to unpick the armholes before I could try it on. I also found that on one of the side seams, there was a random hole. So where the fabric kind of wants to roll in on itself, underneath, I'd obviously been sort of sewing from the top side. I couldn't see underneath, actually the fabric had peeled back, so it hadn't actually caught both pieces of fabric in a particular section. So there was just this random little hole like halfway down. So yeah, also one of the shoulder sections, a similar thing had happened. There was a little bit of slippage, and it wasn't a hole, but actually you could see the stitching from the other side, which isn't great. I know it's like the first item of clothing I've made, but still, I'd rather like resolve that. I think that's resolvable. The other shoulder seems to be fine, I think. I'll probably like turn it out the right way out and find that there are more of these issues, but yeah, so I've had to unpick the shoulder that didn't quite work, and we're going to re-sew all of that. I've unpicked the armholes, and then I'm going to re-sew over the side where I've got the hole currently and see if we can fix that. Because I did also wonder whether I should just bring the seam allowance in, like another centimetre or something, but actually I think that's going to take too much. I'd obviously left room for seam allowance, but I think it's going to take too much out of the garment in general. So yeah, we shall see anyway. Like, this was supposed to be an experiment. All you can do is laugh at yourself. Oh god, I just hope that after all this it is then wearable and doesn't fall apart when I wash it, but yeah, we'll see anyway. So, next up then, sewing down the correct bits, or re-sewing the bits that needed re-sewing, and then we'll be on to folding over the little hem bits on the now open sleeves, and the bottom, and the collar. So yeah, stay tuned. So I think, now that all the seams are sorted, I tried it on again, and aside from where it does come out perhaps a little bit more around the bottom end than I would like, so it's sort of like, and I don't know quite how I've managed this actually, it sort of goes, and it's maybe obviously because I have body parts to get past, but yeah, so it looks fine at the top, and it's not that it doesn't look fine, it's just, I don't know how it's happened. It sort of flares out almost a bit at the bottom. But yes, that's probably going to be minimised when I turn the hem under anyway. So now I'm going to pin up the sleeves, the neckline, and the bottom hem, and then we are done. And I've made my first bit of clothing with only minimal faux pas, hopefully. So yeah, see you on the other side. So, I'm officially done. There are some bits that are a little bit, some things are a little bit wonky. Obviously that last round of stuff was all top stitching, so you can see the stitching on the outside, and some bits went really well, and you're like, oh yes, that's nice and smooth, and then you're like, somehow there is a wrinkle of fabric caught in the stitch, and I can't undo it without redoing the whole thing. I'm going to attack it with the iron in a moment anyway to try and flatten like the bottom, because even though I've now sewed down the bottom hem, it's still trying to roll out, and I'm like, then you can just see all the sewing I've got underneath, and that was not the plan. That was in fact the opposite of the plan. But I'm quite pleased with how the sleeves in general have come out. As I say, it still kind of does that flaring thing at the bottom. And I'm not still not really sure why. Maybe that was just a cutting error, because it's doing it on both sides, so it's not like I just sewed one side really weirdly. But yeah, this fabric, pretty, but also quite hellish to work with. And guess what? I've got a similar fabric in a different amazing style that I also wanted to make a t-shirt out of. I still want to do that, and I'm hoping I can apply the, ooh, got crap on it. I'm hoping I can apply the learnings from this one to that one. So considering I didn't have a pattern and literally just drew round one of my own tops, and I've never made an item of clothing before, and it's literally 2 pieces of fabric that I've then had to zhuzh together to make some kind of sensible garment. I'm actually feeling pretty pleased. As I say, I'm going to attack it with the iron and see what I can do about sort of flattening the bits that are trying to stick out. But otherwise, I think defo good first attempt, and defo a sign that practice is needed if we're going to go down the cosplay route. So oh, I hope you've enjoyed watching this slightly painful attempt at making a garment. But come on in now and watch the fashion show of joy as I show off my creation.